This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, plus it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, spyware, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. Net neutrality is back. Ish. So one of the early topics that we discussed on the show ever, early on in the existence of the show, was the end of the original net neutrality rules. There was a time box put on the original rules because there had been issues in the past with laws going into place, technology changing, and the rules not making any sense, which is why for the first 5 years of Netflix's streaming existence, you could not share your watch history to Facebook. Was because a judge did something stupid many years ago, and a law was created. Anyway, so there was a time box put on it, which made sense. The net neutrality rules went away. There have been these attempts to return it. We are in a new generation of that attempt, and the FCC has put basically what was originally in place from, I can't remember the exact years, but I want to say it was 98 to 2007 or something like that, or 2008. Maybe it was 98 to 08. Back in place, which is the same set of rules that were put in place a couple of years ago, 2015, that were in place seemingly for an hour or two, and then somehow went away. So if you don't know what net neutrality is, it essentially means that ISPs cannot positively or negatively affect the flow of data to and from one particular source and destination. So, for example, Comcast owns Universal, Comcast owns an internet provider, Xfinity, and Universal owns Peacock, so Comcast has an interest in Peacock running better than Hulu, which is owned by Disney. So Comcast is not allowed to slow down Hulu to make Peacock look like a better service. Right? There are lots of other reasons why they might do this. Services like Netflix. Netflix in particular, I think, uses 18% of all internet bandwidth or something like that was one of the last numbers I saw. It's a ridiculously high stat just for Netflix. So, there's a possibility. An ISP could say, well, Netflix is taking up too much bandwidth. How about we throttle it back or charge them to get full speed? All of that is not allowed. The thing that's interesting is almost everybody in the country agrees that net neutrality rules are important. There are factions on how that should be done. Some believe that the FCC has the authority to do it. Some believe that they do not, and that Congress needs to pass a particular law. The Supreme Court did state that they believed that the FCC under Title II of the Communications Act had the authority, but that is likely to be challenged because the third faction of people here is those who either believe that net neutrality is not important or have a vested interest in pretending to believe that net neutrality is not important. For example, Comcast. What's the name of the trade organization? U.S. Telecom. Obviously a trade organization for telecommunications companies. is fighting these new rules as they have before. In the past, they have won on these fights. Even losing in the Supreme Court, they still won at knocking him down. Their arguments are interesting. They have two main arguments. The first is, even when there were no net neutrality rules in place, this was the operating policy of all of the ISPs in the United States. And the second is, enforcing these rules will cost us too much and will prevent us from rolling out better broadband nationwide under the what is it? There was like $50 million to get internet to places that don't have it in the country. So it'll cost us too much to comply, and we won't be able to roll out nationwide coverage. And also, it's what we're already doing. Abram, can you make this make sense for me? Because those seem like conflicting views.
Yeah. So one thing is that I don't understand is this going to be? This is only on wired internet, correct? It doesn't. Or is it now going to affect wireless?
I think so. I think the rules were rewritten slightly to refer to home broadband, to home internet access. So I have a feeling that T-Mobile may not be affected, but T-Mobile at home will be.
So, I mean, because yeah, obviously that's going to be a more and more popular thing is going to be wireless home internet,
Yeah.
but and apparently it's gotten better too. I think we talked about it like a year ago or so
Mm-hmm.
that the T-Mobile at home was we had someone who worked for us who had a horrible experience, and apparently it's been getting better. So, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. I mean, but so many people do so much of their accessing of the internet over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm just wondering, like, is this even sufficient? I mean, I guess we've been lucky that, as far as I can tell, there hasn't been a major, uh, like, a major dispute. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because the rule getting rid of net neutrality hasn't been around long enough. But it's extremely dangerous because you have, like, if an ISP can slow things down based on any judgment, any reason,
Right.
one, obviously, they can control the market because now you have to pay kind of a carriage fee.
Mm-hmm.
Although the reverse of the way carriage fees normally work,
Right.
because normally the cable company pays CBS or whatever to carry their content. Here, the broadcaster would have to pay the different ISPs to be shown, or at
Mm-hmm.
least to be let through with reasonable bandwidth.
Right.
So one that creates a huge business issue for businesses. Two, um, you just never know what might motivate an ISP
Right.
to treat to treat some source of information unfavorably. So, what if the ISP has a political goal and they
Right.
decide to cut off websites or streams or whatever that go against that?
Yeah.
Uh, what if they are simply a business and they want, like, was like Comcast, right? Comcast owns NBC, is
Mm-hmm.
it?
Yeah. Yeah. The
So
entire
what if they're
Universal
like,
family.
right? So okay, so we're going to allow Peacock to 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 be
Yep.
real speedy, but Netflix is our competitor, so we're
Or
going to
Hulu.
slow them down.
Hulu's been
Hulu, we're going
my
to slow down.
Hulu's been my
Yeah.
example because they're such direct competitors because they both have yesterday's episodes today and things like that. Paramount Plus would be another great
or
example.
or
That
YouTube
are
or YouTube
that are
TV.
sure YouTube TV, Hulu with live TV, Sling, any of those.
Right? I mean, and they have every economic incentive to do it.
Right, right.
Right?
They
So they have
also
every reason to
have
do it.
so com to keep with Comcast. They also have this interesting, both economic and like it's the middle ground of economic and political incentive to say go after Steven Crowder, right? Who has sued the company. What if there's a lawsuit and all of a sudden a content creator or a website or the Dish Network and CNET, right? That lawsuit. All of a sudden, Dish Network, which owns weird things, if they have home internet through Boost or something like that, maybe they start slowing down CNET or blocking it altogether because there's a lawsuit out there, right? Because
Right.
those two companies were at each other weird and publicly.
Right. So, I mean, we already have this problem on cable TV, right? We have period, although they always seem to come to some conclusion because they need to. But there's how many times do
Yeah.
people lose access to a channel for a while or to a series of channels for a while because they can't agree on the carriage fees?
Right. Yeah, it happens all the time.
So, right. So we don't want this happening on the internet.
Right. It's the opposite of the point of the internet.
Yeah, we don't want this happening on the internet. Now, I do feel I don't know enough about the bandwidth, the cost of bandwidth to say whether this actually matters or not. But I could understand the scenario where okay, someone is running like a server, like
On a home internet connection.
on a home internet connection, and they say, hey, wait a second, you're like abusing your connection or something. But I don't know that wouldn't that a net neutrality would protect that anyway.
I don't think
Would
so.
protect that anyway.
I think that might be terms of service for a home internet connection.
Right. So so I'm not, and remember that this net neutrality still doesn't deal with bandwidth caps, right?
Correct.
On the consumer, on the
Right.
on the user end. So yeah, I don't like this could lead to censorship. It leads to
Yeah.
kind of a protection racket. We haven't seen a lot of it, but we should be thankful for that because
I
it
think
could happen.
I think the reason why we haven't seen it is because of the constant looming of the return of net neutrality. The way it has been implemented, except for that first time boxed instance, the way it has been implemented every time that it has popped its head back up has been, if not illegal, which the Supreme Court says it's not illegal, certainly stupid. And here's why. Leaving it to the whims of a group of bureaucrats that change every couple years is insane. This year it's this, next year it's that, and it goes away again. If we want this to be a serious endeavor, Congress needs to deal with it. Plain and simple.
Yeah,
Congress needs to deal
yeah,
with it because you don't have we're going to talk about exactly the same thing in the next segment when we talk about TikTok. When you have a group of, in this case, 5 people, in the case of TikTok, it was 1 person, that switches out based on its own time box, things change. Nothing's predictable. Everything's chaos. If Congress actually gets involved and says, this is how it works, FCC, you're in charge of enforcing it, fantastic. Then we don't have to worry about the ever-changing political tides, right? Congress getting involved is the right way to deal with this.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, yes, because hopefully you would get in a lovely world, we would get some kind of a bipartisan bill that then everyone could agree on. So when the composition of uh, Congress inevitably changes and the
Mm-hmm.
FCC changes as we have different administrations, that we can have a consistent law,
Yeah.
right? Um, Unfortunately, for reasons that I don't even totally understand, but I think we all agree that our Congress is more dysfunctional in terms of being able to pass laws these days than it was in, say, when did the Digital Millennium Copyright Act come out? 1998 or something.
Yeah.
Um, so, like a lot of we should be thankful that there was a time, right, when things like Section 230 were, you know, were now, that now nobody likes, but were put in place for like a good reason,
Yeah.
which was to try to make it so that there wasn't a ridiculous amount of lawsuits
Right.
and abuse of, you know, the internet. So now the problem is neutrality. I think we also have a lot of politicians on every side of the aisle that take a lot of money from the
Yeah.
telecom industry, and so they don't, which doesn't want this. So, uh, you know, I think it would be difficult legislation to pass, and that's why you've seen uh, folks try to do it through
Yeah.
regulatory
Through
agencies.
bureaucracy.
I mean, through bureaucracy. It would be very nice if we could come to an agreement that we agreed that this was kind of settled law, and like, you know, and I guess that there has to be some outer parameters of it because for me, I think everything should be neutral, but uh, including wireless. But but I know that there's probably would have to be some type of compromise around certain, being able to manage certain types of bandwidth or whatever. But we can't, you know, we need to make sure. I mean, we need to make sure that this isn't control of the internet pipes is not used to advance the ISP's agenda.
Right. Yeah. That absolutely makes sense. So,
We have
well,
enough of a problem with social networks advancing an agenda.
yeah. Yes, indeed. Sorry, I'm looking to see if I can see anything about mobile. I don't I don't see anything specifically called out. So, yeah, the agendas are certainly a problem. I think right now that both the House and the Senate would have the votes to do it, because both parties say they're in favor of it, and both parties say that it should be Congress that enacts it, including the people in Congress. But I think nobody wants to be the one to advance it. That's the thing. I think nobody wants to put their name on it. So we'll see. In an ideal world, that would be the deal, so that every time we blink, the rules don't change, which is the reason why why the founders didn't create a bureaucracy, right? So that there'd be some consistency in the way the country existed. But this is where we are right now. Net neutrality is in place for the time being, and hopefully what we will see at some point is somebody having the courage to advance this into permanent standing. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell, because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.